Thank you everyone for having me here today. I'm sorry that as the late addition I was the one that completely ruined any chance of gender equality. As a white middle-class Southeast English male, I represent the majority. I'm sorry about this. Sorry. Anyway, so I'm going to talk briefly about SDG 16. So it's one of the SDGs that's in the UN 2030 agenda. I'm going to cover a little bit about the importance of free public access to the internet, and then I'm going to really focus on the example of Colombia and the Libraries for Peace initiative, which has taken place there. So those are the 3 points I'll be talking about. So I've got one of probably the most difficult SDGs to talk about here, peace, justice and strong institutions. That's SDG 16. It's difficult in that it wasn't until very late in the process of negotiating the post-2015 agenda that it was actually included. There was a lot of opposition to this as a concept from many member states. But it's also difficult in that it's cross-cutting. It's the SDG that talks about peace and good governance and transparency, as well as the right of citizens to access the information they need to learn, to grow, to innovate, and simply to take better decisions about their lives. It therefore touches on agricultural extension services, public health information, broader opportunities to learn and find work, innovation, culture, smart systems, and evidence-based policy making. It is an enabler of development in all of the areas we'll be discussing today, rather than an end in itself. It also can all be all too easily taken for granted because it covers things that you don't necessarily notice, at least when they're working well. Clearly, with only half the world's population online, we face a challenge in giving people the possibility to access, to engage with, to apply and to create new information. What's perhaps more frustrating still is that the majority of the unconnected today do in fact live within reach of mobile networks, but a mixture of cost, as well as a lack of confidence, skills, and relevant content keeps them offline. The need for a free entry point to the internet with tailored support to help people make the most of the possibilities, in addition to all of the other services we'll be talking about today, is clear. Research indicates that libraries, with dedicated staff, a community focus, and the offer of valued services provide this. They are public without being governmental. They can be shown to be more welcoming to marginalised groups. Mrs. Ward mentioned the example of the Hole in the Wall initiative in India. One of the lessons from this was that of the communities using it, the boys would tend to elbow the girls out of the way and prevent them accessing the internet. We need some sort of action. We need to move in order to make sure that cultural stereotypes, cultural norms do not simply reproduce themselves on the internet as they exist in physical life today. They also, libraries, enjoy the trust that allows users to search for the most sensitive, but also potentially the most personally valuable information. A number of reports have suggested that providing public access through community anchor institutions such as libraries, schools and health centres, much as the EU itself is looking to do with Wi-Fi for EU, offers a highly cost-effective way of doing this. And this is what led the Colombian government to launch the Libraries for Peace initiative this year. After decades of war, there was a clear need to help the citizens of formerly rebel-controlled areas, and in particular ex-fighters, to reintegrate, to find ways to be and to feel empowered in the post-conflict world they now inhabited. For years, these regions hadn't had much in the way of public services, education, health, culture. Their ties with the government were, understandably, almost non-existent, if not conflictual. The government chose to start this process of reconnection through libraries. It bought 20 mobile libraries, making use of the Ideas Box context developed by French NGO Bibliothèques Sans Frontières, and deployed them to the Verdales region, which had been particularly hard affected by the fighting. For many, they were the first public service, other than the military, with which they had ever been in contact. These libraries offer internet access, or at least access to internet content, an important step forwards in regions that have been cut off for years. Where connections are less good, an internet-in-a-box model is followed, with servers taken to the nearest town every week and updated with new information. Courses are offered, educational materials provided, but so too is a community space, a physical space, where people can work together to apply the information that they have accessed from the virtual world. Libraries are also making much more direct contributions to peace building, giving access to copies of the final text of the peace agreement, and working with people, many of whom have suffered intense trauma, to create personal archives with a view to reconciling themselves with the past. The National Library Association, conscious of this potential, has been ready to step up and think actively about how they can contribute to peace. More broadly, libraries are also engaging in innovative projects to develop access. Working with government and coffee producers such as Lavazza, it has been possible to give access to unused radio spectrum, TV white space, and so bring internet access to some of the most remote regions of the country. Government, business and libraries working together to benefit users. There are other exciting initiatives, again in Colombia, again with government. Libraries in Medellin have installed pollution sensors and are offering people the data literacy training needed to understand the information being produced. This is not only helping the government's own efforts to track particulate matter, one of the SDG goals, but it's also engaging citizens in policy issues. Now, these are only examples from Colombia, but around the world there are so many similar ones and so much more potential. As a trusted entry point to the internet, as a hub for local connectivity, as a physical venue for getting to grips with the virtual world, as a platform for collaboration with other actors, business, government, civil society, libraries have a firmly recognised potential to help ICT really work for development. Thank you.